Let's begin. Okay, so first on the agenda is to discuss policy P, and Jessica, you have some new information for us.
I do. I don't have a great full update like I did about your electronic meeting policy, but I did want to share what I had heard back so far, just so you know what's going on and what we're still waiting for. So the opinion I've received back so far is an informal one. So they're going to do a little bit more assessment and get back to us more fully. And they know that you're meeting on an every 3 or 4 week schedule right now. But the initial assessment is that because the library board is the entity that has the control and management of the library system, that you all, and they use the word ought to have a final say on the naming of libraries. But they weren't able to confirm that that ought is an actual process yet. So they're going to do some more digging and see if there's any structured documents that are out there that would actually clarify whether or not the library board or the board of supervisors has the final say on the naming of any governmental facilities, not just libraries. And they're hoping to get back to you all in time for your next board meeting.
Okay.
There was a secondary part, the question I sent to them about that topic, which was whether or not the library board had any authority to review or certify, which is, I don't think is the right word, but some kind of public petition. They do not believe that you have the authority to do that, but they're checking in with additional colleagues and anticipate having more information for your next board meeting on that topic as well.
Okay.
So both of the parts for policy B.
Would you say that again, that whether we have authority to certify a petition, is that sort of what it is?
Yeah, so one of the questions that came up the last board meeting was the policy as it stands right now says that the public can come forward and request a name change. And you had talked about how many people the public might be and what composition that might be, and what would happen if the public had actually gone out and done some kind of petition or any kind of ballot name gathering. So I had asked the county attorney's office if your board had any kind of authority to both authorize that type of position and to eventually certify. Again, certify is not the right word, but certify any responses that came back. They don't believe you have that authority, but they're double checking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
all the information I just shared is an unofficial opinion. It's not done. We don't have a written document yet, but I did want to make sure that you knew that they are looking into it on your behalf and that they hope to have more information for your next committee meeting.
Okay. And so that would, because we also were curious about, is it one citizen or, I mean, of course, a petition then would include multiple citizens, but would one citizen have the authority or?
Well, that's entirely up to you all. I did not ask how large a petition would have to be. The way that your policy is currently written, and I have a copy, is, excuse me, the library board will consider the renaming of a library if the request comes from and reflects the wishes of the citizens within the library service area, and if the benefits of the name change outweigh the costs that such a name change could generate. So if you all wanted to have a number attached to that, like 10 or 100 or whatever, that's up to you. All I asked them was whether or not you all have the autonomy to start a petition or, again, certify it. Would you like me to ask them about the number part as well?
What does everybody else think? I personally think that I would be comfortable with having a number, but what about everybody else? What do you think?
I mean, did we talk last time about the fact that the phrase, if the benefits of a name change outweigh the costs?
Yeah.
And did we talk about the fact that that is effectively meaningless?
Oh.
I agree with you.
I mean,
I don't
even know what it means. If the benefits outweigh the costs are going to be a dollar value associated with changing all the names. The benefits aren't going to have a dollar value associated with them.
Yeah, how would you measure?
Yeah.
How would you measure? So
What would the measurement be
Yeah.
there? I have that. I don't remember talking about it either. But,
No, I don't either.
but
I mean, so
Can you let me share my screen and I'll pull up the policy so you can all have it up?
yeah, well, I printed it out. I have it, so but that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
all I'm saying is that's in that same paragraph too.
Yeah.
And, you know, Perhaps we should think about it, maybe as we think about changing paragraph 2, if it should say something like, if the library board determines that a name change would benefit the community, period, or something like that. So it's vague, but it leaves the discretion to us, but we don't have to prove it in
Yeah.
some amorphous way.
Well, because we'd have to involve an agency in how much would it cost to change
There we
the
go.
signs?
Can you all?
Jessica's, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, can you all see the working document here from your
Yeah.
last meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would want it changed to delete this whole portion?
Well, possibly. I mean, let me just make a suggestion and then people can think about it, but I would think it should say something like, within the library services area, if the library board determines that a name change would benefit the community, or something like that.
Jessica, is
Yes.
it possible that phrase was borrowed from the elsewhere in the county?
Hmm.
I know politically when this type of thing is discussed, that's always brought up as sort of an out for not having to change the name.
True.
And I'm wondering if it isn't just applied to the library, that it's used elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And who pays for it? It wouldn't be the library, would it? Be the facilities department.
That depends.
Okay.
It always depends, right? So I would guess, not knowing for sure right now, that if the library board initiated a name change that the county had not been part of the process of, and the costs were realistic, that we would have to eat the cost for that, because the county doesn't budget for it and the county didn't ask for it.
Mhm.
But I don't know that for sure. I'm assuming that the review that the county is doing right now, that's more comprehensive, they're looking at budget costs that go along with it. So they might be footing the cost for those ones if they pushed it down on agencies or individual locations. But if this was solely a library board decision, I think the library would be on the hook for the cost.
And that would be the cost of changing the sign, whatever that is. There must be a standard payment for making that change. But would there be anything that would go along with it that would require a lawyer with the name change?
There would certainly need to be a legal review to ensure that there's no requirement that the county keeps a name. Like if it was named and it was attached to like a monetary amount, like if someone paid for it. I don't think we don't have any libraries like that that I'm aware of. Most of them are named for historical figures or locations.
Right.
So I don't think so. I mean, the big cost would be changing the name of the facility, the actual signage, reprinting any marketing and publication materials that we have that have, names of facilities on them,
Right.
staff time and updating websites and things like that, which are pretty minimal. And the only reference point I have, because it's the only one that's really cropped up recently, is when that high school that changed to Justice High School changed.
Yeah.
Their cost was about $250,000. They had a lot more signage. It's a much bigger space. They had more things. I can't imagine we would get anywhere near 3 figures, but I also couldn't. I don't have any quotes on hand.
Yeah, right.
And to Gary's earlier point, I think I skipped it and I apologize. I am not aware that we pulled the specific language about the benefit outweighing the cost from another county agency or from the County Board of Supervisors. But I do think that we added that language during the last update of this policy. And John's paper files actually have the track change versions, so I can check when I'm back in the office on Monday.
Okay. Right.
So in general, was there consensus from your committee that you would like to remove if the benefit of the change outweighs the costs and replace it with at the board's discretion
I
or
mean,
at the board's advisement.
I don't know, if you're saying that the costs are such that it would be the library administration who covers it, then this phrase is fine, because we're the ones who determine. I mean, one of the logical questions would be, what's going to cost, Jessica? Do we have the money in our budget? And then you say cost X, and yes, we do, or we will next year. And then the library decides, yes, the benefits outweigh. So if that's the way we see it, now that you've explained it, then I actually think that this is fine, because it keeps it within our discretion.
I agree with Miriam.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
Okay.
I had one other question. Going down further, I think it's first comes up in number 3, where naming a meeting room for a corporation, group, or individual. Why a corporation? I was wondering if that's something that we wanted to keep, and it's again referred to in number 4.
I would say that's entirely up to you all. I believe that language, the 3 different groupings, was in the policy the last time we did the updates.
Yeah,
If you'd like to remove corporation or add something different, that's totally within your purview.
yeah. Am I the only one who questions that word or that group?
The only thing that occurs to me is, well, a couple things on both sides. It's sort of like, you know, the names of arenas that are now named after big companies is kind of distasteful. On the other hand, I don't know if it's, I'm thinking of the foundation, you know, soliciting donations from,
Right, it is not distasteful if some,
you know, if they would, if they say, well, we would like to give you a lot of money and
exactly.
have something named after us, we're like, well, okay.
I would leave it in there. I don't think there's any harm to it.
Okay. Okay.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, the only harm is the factual outcome, which is that, you know, it shouldn't be private donations or corporate donations, which are supplanting county money. But I mean, that's kind of an argument for another day.
Could we go back to number 2 and let me make a radical suggestion? The whole idea of involving the community, number 1, from a theoretical standpoint, this is the only issue of all the issues that the library deals with that have been raised to the level of direct community involvement. And from a practical standpoint, trying to determine what that community involvement is proving rather difficult. For example, what is the jurisdiction of the Lorton Library? What is the jurisdiction of the Kingstown Library? Obviously, there's a big overlap. And as we're finding also that who is the person who's signing the petition someone that is eligible to do it? How do we determine that? You know, there's a whole list of things that we discussed last week that are proving difficult. So I'm not suggesting, but I'm throwing it up for consideration. Do we really even need anything about community involvement other than maybe just a suggestion that be taken into account?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting issue. I know I've gotten 2 letters from people asking that Woodrow Wilson be renamed. And in a way, it's like just the fact that 2 people have written, you know, and I've discussed it with my the supervisor, has definitely raised the issue. So I'm with Gary, like, so do we need to, go through the petition and that process, and who, I mean, citizens would have to do it, but then it would have to be all the things that you mentioned. And what would the number be? What they're going through in neighborhoods renaming streets, it has to be 10% of the people, and it's a big deal. And I guess what I'm saying, bottom line is, often when we get letters, we respond to those, and we don't say, well, we will only respond to letters if we see X number of them on an issue. You see what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we need to go through all that.
So what would you propose it should say instead of what it says?
I don't know that you need to have it.
So just leave it as is.
Yeah, is that too radical or something? I don't know.
It's not radical. It's what it's been the whole time, and so far it hasn't really caused an issue. So it's if it's not broke, don't fix it theory. Right?
But because if we hear from someone, it becomes an issue that we would probably talk about. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Gary, was one of your suggestions just to delete number 2 entirely? Was it to just keep the language as is?
As I said, I wasn't really making a suggestion, but I think one of the things we should consider is getting rid of it entirely.
Okay.
Just to your point, Gary, about the service area, that I think that does raise the issue. Like, we don't say only people who live in a certain area can use a certain library, because anybody can use any library. So then wouldn't it be a percentage of the whole county? And that would be impossible. It would be crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost, a policy should be really broad. And that one is it almost gets into like regulations of how you would accomplish something, rather than what's our policy. And our policy is, we have a way of renaming them if we want to.
Right. Right, and it does say the library board will consider, and then weighing the benefits of the name change. So it's not as if whether we have 1 or 100 people requesting a name change is going to automatically happen. It still goes back to the library board to make the because I do.
This says that we will do something. So you could argue that Fran has heard from the community that we should change Woodrow Wilson's name. And so according to this, we should at least consider it.
I mean, you could fix that simply by saying the library board may
Yes.
consider.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could even make it more specific by saying the chair of the library board.
We inherently have the authority to do that. We wouldn't need a policy that says that we can.
The only thing is, if we take out the paragraph entirely, we don't really say anything about when we might or whether we might consider on our own initiative renaming.
Which means we can do it anytime we want.
Well, it doesn't actually. I mean, I know the policies don't limit our actions, but they guide our actions, and it would not say that if you took out entirely paragraph 2. It goes into detail that we may consider naming a piece of furniture or naming a fixture, but the library itself, we don't talk about. And actually, now that you say this, we should be consistent, because paragraph 2 is will consider, paragraph 3 will consider, paragraph 4 is may consider. We should change them all to may.
Yeah.
Change paragraph 3 to may.
Yeah.
Right, I see that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and it could be if a request comes from If requested, I don't know. That's-
No, what you could also just say, library board may from time to time, or may consider renaming of a library in appropriate circumstances,
Yeah,
or
because it doesn't have to be a request. I mean, we could come up with the idea ourselves.
or as vague as you want it to be.
Yeah, or general. Applicable.
Or the library board has you could even be more generic and say, the library board has the authority to rename a library, period. Meaning all you're doing is stating in the policy the scope of our authority. I'm not sure if we actually have the authority to
But
rename.
that's what I was going to ask that.
Yeah,
You could put that in number 1 as the lead in to
Yes,
how we
you
have to
could.
do it.
Yes,
Mhm.
we'll
Yeah.
name, we'll decide the name.
Okay, so you want to add to
And
number
rename.
1.
Well, we're just struggling here. I do think that this policy should reflect somehow that we have the power. Now, I don't know if we have the final power to rename, but we certainly have the power to recommend, or I don't know what it is, whether or not it's like, Jessica, we can't just decide on our own to rename a library, right?
That's the question that's with the county attorneys right now.
Okay, well, if they come back and they say it's our authority by ourselves, we should have a sentence in there that simply says that we have the authority to rename. If it's not completely our power, then maybe our sentence says, you know, the library board has the authority in conjunction with Fairfax County, you know, whatever, administration to rename. Just something that's a statement of our authority. If you guys want to take out current paragraph number 2, but I'm also fine with leaving current paragraph number 2 with just, and changing will to may.
Okay, so what
So
I
why
can
don't we
do,
do this? Why don't we just make a note of these comments so we'll remember what we were concerned about? And then when we hear back from the Fairfax County, county attorney, we can decide how far we want to go in this policy. Because we can't really make a final change now anyway.
I think that's a good idea.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
so what I have noted for you all, I just pulled this up from my email. I didn't save it to the laptop I'm on, so it's not letting me track changes right now, but I have them all written down, is that you'd like to change in sections 2 and 3, the word will to may, and that you'd like to add a sentence to section 1 reflective of whatever the library board's authority is regarding the renaming or naming of facilities. So either the library board has the authority to name or rename, or the library board in collaboration with the county has the ability to name or rename. And it sounded like you would like to no longer have these edits included in section number 2.
That is correct. And I would make a further note that says,
And
that we are considering whether, depending on the county attorney answer, we are considering whether or not to retain the original paragraph 2 at all, basically. Just because I know in a month or 3 weeks, I won't even remember that we had this conversation, much less what we said during it.
you're too young to say that.
The nice thing is this is
And
recorded
yet,
for
it's true.
prosperity.
Well, we,
Yeah.
Gary brought up the issue of having the library service area. I mean, the library service area is the areas the county, right? It's not limited to the neighborhoods. I'm not sure if that needs to be in there.
I would argue that the library service area is intended to be a local community that uses the branch. And I don't know whether or not you want to agree with that or change language because of it, but I can think of examples where, for example, if you try and email one of the board of supervisors with a request or a complaint, they have you check a little box that says you live in that district first.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
But that district, though, is definable.
It is, yeah. Service area is less so. Yeah, so you could change the language if you'd like. You can remove, you can do whatever you want with it. I would argue that service area is probably not the whole county if we're talking about naming one specific facility.
So you change it to district rather than serviced area.
I don't know. You have some libraries that may be in one district. So like Kingstown right now is in Mount Vernon district, but it's right on the line between Mount Vernon and Lee.
Right.
And so you would have users from both of those districts, like Gary mentioned earlier with the Lorton other branch example.
And I can see, I mean, I think every branch has people who work in the area use the library, but they live someplace else. And so, I mean, that I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
It's hard to really peg a person's library to where they live.
And the phrase right now is ambiguous enough that you all could define it in the moment as you needed.
Right.
What did we decide about if the benefits outweigh the costs?
We said that that was okay. I mean, if we retain paragraph 2, that phrase, having worked through it, is really fine. I think that's where we ended up, yeah.
I think so too.
Yes, that's what I have noted down.
So you brought up, I think Mary brought up the inconsistency of will, may.
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
shall.
we made this, Jessica has a note of those
Right,
changes.
those all changed.
Yes. Yeah. Is there anything else you all would like to consider within this policy as we wait for their advice from the attorneys?
Yep.
Then I think your next one is the bylaw review. Would you like me to pull up the general bylaws for edits and additions right now, or did you want to look at the document that the attorneys sent us that was a draft for your electronic meeting policy?
Well, I read through the real bylaws, so if we,
I did too.
I didn't have a ton to change, so if we want to do that, it might be faster.
I know
Because-
the 3 things that I
Yeah.
had brought up are fine now.
What was that?
Well, I had brought up,
Right.
I didn't find the simple majority, what that was defined, and Jessica pointed out was in Article 7. The elected, we got that. What's the other? Oh, I know, and Sheila and I were talking about this. It says in there that a copy of the policies will be kept in each branch, and that's when they were physical, and I wonder if we should, add something about on the website.
Well, take it out of on the branch. They don't need to be in the branches. They can just be on
Yeah,
the web.
it's on the website, yeah.
Right.
Unless Jessica, do you think people want, I mean, my own recollection as a branch manager was like, no, we didn't really.
No, I don't think they want them in there. Do you
Yeah.
happen to recall which article it's in?
Yeah, let me look that up. It's section 3. The secretary of the board shall index and codify all current policies. Copies shall be kept at every branch library available for public inspection. So it's
But which
section-
article? Oh,
Article
hold on.
6, sorry,
Article
Article 6,
6.
Section 3.
Got it. So,
Yeah.
yes. So you would like to just delete this section. Copies shall be kept at each branch available for public inspection.
Well, should we have something in there? They are available on the library website for public inspection.
Right.
Yeah.
Online. Oops, I should have done track change with that. Let's go back.
Right.
Okay. Branches shall be kept online, available for public inspection.
Yeah. So the we have an amendment.
I had a couple of little things. So, in Article 5, Section 2, subparagraph A, I'm pretty sure this is a typo, that little number 2.
No, it refers to the definition of foundation at the end. It's a footnote, so it should be a superscript, but it isn't. I had that same, like, what is that? So I kept looking, but it just says, what is the foundation?
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Um,
So there's a 1 somewhere too that probably needs to be. Oh, I know. Up in Article 3, membership, Section 1, there's also another footnote 1 that should be a superscript. Yeah, you got it.
And it's just the two of them, so there's only two that need to have the formatting changed.
Right.
So, okay, I have another one. Under elections, so elections is there, elections is there, C. Is this consistent under C? A vacancy shall be, so the only positions that there are chair and vice chair, and secretary is the, the director. A vacancy shall be filled for the unexpired term by a person elected by a majority vote of the remaining members of the board, 5 days notice such election being given. When a vacancy occurs in the office of the chair of the board, the vice chair shall serve for the remainder of the term. Well, what does the first sentence mean if the vacancy shall be filled? So it's really only if the vacancy shall occur in the office of the vice chair, then there's an election. Because if it's in the office of the chair, then the vice chair sits in it. So why doesn't it just say, for the office of the chair, the vice chair takes the term. For the office, if that happens, then the office of the vice chair will be up for election. And if a vacancy happens in the office foundation director, then an election shall happen. Do you see what I'm saying? So only if you guys agree, but if you agree, then I think the way this goes.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
see what you mean.
I think the way this goes, Jessica, is you have C, D, and E. C says if there's a vacancy in the office of the chair, it's this second sentence. When a vacancy occurs in the office of the chair, the vice chair shall serve for the remainder. And then D is if there's a vacancy in the office for the vice chair, then we have an election. And E is if there's a vacancy in the office of the director appointed to the foundation. I mean, like, I don't care if there's an election for that. It'd be just as good if you just said the chair appoints somebody to serve the remainder of the term instead of having an election. But I mean, that's kind of neither here nor there, I guess. If you can find somebody to do it, all the better.
So what would you like to do for the foundation position?
I mean, right now, if you wanted to just keep it the way it is, it would say if there's a vacancy, then another election will be held.
Okay. Does that reflect, is everyone happy with that language? I mean, I can tinker with it a little bit, but in general, vacancy in the office of the chair, the vice chair shall serve.
Yep.
Vacancy in the office of the vice chair, filled, not filed, for the unexpired term by a person elected by the majority. A vacancy in the office of the foundation director, notice shall be given and an election held.
To fill the vacancy.
Okay.
And change will to shall in A.
A. Wait, 4A?
Yeah.
Shall.
When does the year actually start? July 1st?
July, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fiscal.
So we actually changed the chairman before the chairman is technically the chairman, right?
Well, yeah, like we had the election at the July meeting.
No, it's June.
and then you took
Oh,
over
June.
July.
Yeah. And then it was,
This was unusual when we did it in July at our July meeting because we didn't have a June meeting, right?
no, we had a June meeting. The June one was by phone though.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to do all the normal things we would have at the June meeting.
Right.
I'm really being anal here, but we're saying that in June we're electing the chairman for the upcoming year or the following year, which doesn't start until July 1st, but they take over in June. I don't think it matters, but it's just, observation.
Would you like me to change following to upcoming?
No, the word, that doesn't bother me. I'm saying the chairman takes over the duties a few weeks before they are technically the chairman.
I think
Okay.
so.
Miriam, did you have additional areas you'd like me to pull up for your consideration?
No, just, no, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of them, but you're not going to want me to do it.
Gary, what section do you want me to go to?
Well, section 3C, we talk about nomination forms. We don't do that, do we?
Yeah, that, I had that too. Yeah.
So 3,
Nomination forms, you're right.
3C, we don't do that.
okay. So should I just have it each year at the April meeting, the chair shall appoint a nominating committee of 2 board members? And then take out whose responsibility shall be to what?
To just report.
Or how about receive nominations?
Do you all receive nominations or do you make nominations?
I'm trying to think this out, but don't you do that by phone and then report?
Or establish a slate of officers, something like that, because you do the slate. I mean, and I don't know if we need to include in here the responsibility to get someone to run for the foundation thing, because that's just because it gets neglected. A slate of officers to include or something like that, chair, vice chair, and foundation rep.
And is that still, is the foundation rep still a 1 year? Because it does say 1 year
Yeah,
at some point. So,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I had this too. I think definitely we don't have nomination forms, so we just receive the people who,
Well, it's funny because we also sort of solicit, we ask for nominations at that meeting too, like someone
As
can
well,
nominate from the
as
floor.
well. Right.
And is that then would that be, is that the duty of the chair or is that the duty of the chair of the nominating committee? I guess it would be the nominating committee because you sort of they
Yeah,
turn it over to you.
right, right.
Nomination.
Would you like in section 3D for it to say additional nominations may be made at the May or June meetings from the floor or by the nominating committee?
What about from the floor, since that's what we're
Yeah.
asking?
Yeah, it wouldn't be by the nominating committee because
Yeah.
they should have already done it,
We've
right?
already received them, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe what it should say,
Okay, yeah,
something,
that's good. Sorry.
since the members who would like to run, maybe it should say something like they will contact the nominating committee rather than, we just receive, I don't know, we just seem to receive names.
Yeah, but you don't have to say that, I mean, that doesn't need to go in the bylaws that members can nominate themselves, because we don't really talk about who's nominating here.
Oh, I said nominated is received.
Right, but anybody can nominate.
No, but by the nominating committee.
Wait, what?
See, it's not clear how the nominations are made. There are no forms. All of a sudden, there are just names. I think it should be a little bit clearer, who
Okay.
receives those names.
So why don't you do this in sequential order? Why don't you have the paragraphs be in
Okay.
sequential order? So the first one would say then, any member can nominate themselves or another trustee. Any trustee can nominate themselves or another trustee to serve in whatever position. And then, see, the next one, A, only those persons who have signified their consent to serve if elected shall be nominated. Here's, okay, wait a minute. So what we're saying is that it is the committee that makes nominations, but people who can submit their name to the nominating committee. Well, let's do it that way.
Let's
So,
you start with each year at the April meeting.
yes.
Wouldn't that be the first one?
that's
Right.
right. So the first one is each year at the
Here's
April
April.
meeting, shall appoint a nominating committee of 2 board officers whose responsibility shall be to establish a slate of officers to include chair, vice chair, and foundation representative, and to report the results of the nominations at the regular May meeting. Okay, fine. Then paragraph B would be, any trustee may nominate themselves, no, any trustee may submit their name or the name of another trustee to the nominating committee.
Right.
And then C, the current C stays the same. The current D stays the same.
Right.
The current, I guess that's supposed to be E, additional nominations may be made at the May or June meeting from the floor. And then you have elections. Okay.
That's good. That's clear.
Although I suggest that we do this and then we, read it again all the way through once we've,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that makes sense, once we've moved everything around.
I have one question too. Several times the representative to the foundation is called foundation director. Do we want to change that to representative?
The foundation board calls their board members directors.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Uh,
then. All
Would
right.
you like me to go through and change representative to director?
Yes, it should be one or the other, right? I mean, it should agree, yeah.
So, on the nominations, the new number B or letter B, should that be by, any trustee may submit their name or the name of another by a certain date so that it's regular, ready for their report.
Mhm.
Okay.
If the nominating committee is reporting out at the May meeting, you could always put in week before the regular May meeting or 2 weeks before the regular May meeting. So it's not a set date because you don't have set dates for every year.
Right.
Yeah, and then it still gives persons a chance to self-nominate at the May meeting, right?
Yes.
Or June. Would you like me to put in there just a time frame for now and you can discuss that as a full board later?
What do you think? I think that'd be good. What do you think, Sheila?
Yeah. And it probably should agree when you ask for new business or items from the board to be part of the next meeting. Is there a formula there? Because
We usually request new business items typically by 2 weeks minus 1 day. So it's 2 Thursdays before the next board meeting. So if you just put in 2 weeks, that's
right. I think the consistency would be clear. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good.
Gary, do I recall correctly that you had some other areas you'd like to put forward for consideration?
Unfortunately, in section 3F,
Which article?
Oh, 6.
Article 6, Section
That's
3F. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. It talks about activities, and then it says activity again, and then it says reports as requested. By whom are they requested, and what's the difference between the first and the second activity?
I don't know that there is one. So how about like that? Does the change I made on the screen reflect your comments?
If I could read it.
I can make it a little bit bigger too. It says, present monthly statistical reports on library activities, comma, financial reports, comma, and other reports as requested.
By whom? Requested by,
Do you want me to put in by the library board?
is that implicit already? Maybe. Maybe it's already implicit and you don't want to. Because it could just one member of the board, like the chairman or whatever, request it, or
Do you want it more open than just the chair? Or do you want it, or would it be better funneled through the chair, I guess is the question.
yeah, what I'm saying is maybe it's implicit and I'm just complicating it. I just was wondering if you wouldn't want it wide open so that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could request. But, you know,
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah. I can leave it as the chair of the board for now, and then if you all change your mind later, we can change it up. I actually have one suggestion as well in D or in G. It should probably say serves as a director,
Yeah, I had that
not
too.
the director, because we
Yeah.
have a different one of those.
I wondered in A,
Yes.
the issue that came up at our last meeting about the email, that the report, the packets, the notice shall include the agenda, et cetera, and it is sent in email electronically as well as in writing,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and whether
That's true.
you need to make sure that this reflects that, I guess.
Well, I mean, they're both in writing. So should it say send?
Electronically and in writing.
Yeah.
And in print.
Yeah, and print, that's his, yeah. Hard copy and like, that's good, yeah.
Right.
You don't want my handwritten version. It would be very, very, very bad. Very, very, very bad. I'm going to run out for just a second and grab a Tums. I will be back momentarily.
Now we feel bad that we're making her sick.
No.
No, that's been her pregnancy thing.
I know that.
Well, I mean,
I'm
it would happen
saying-
whether we were with her or not. That's all I'm saying.
We're
We are not sickening.
we're
But I
not-
have to look up the difference between using less than and fewer than, and I think with a plural, you have to say fewer than.
Sorry about that. Okay, where do you want me to scroll to next?
So fewer should be used with nouns for countable, so countable items, and less should be used only with a grammatically singular noun. So what should that, what do you think? Not less than 5 days or not fewer than 5 days?
Oh,
Generally, fewer is used when the number is counted, fewer problems, whereas less is used when the number is measured, less trouble or less time. So
less.
less trouble, less. That's fine, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
If
care.
you don't know, then just leave it as is.
Exactly. It's tricky to figure out. I will ponder it though.
I am sure that you will.
It's my father's fault. He was a grammarian or whatever you want to call it. Okay, go ahead.
Article 7C, where the determines the offices or such other places as may be determined by the board. Shouldn't that be the chair?
Well,
I don't know, you're
would-
giving the chair a heck of a lot of power. I don't know about that. Now that I'm done, it just feels like this is a bit too much power. for
Power
the
grab for
board. You will
friends.
wield it indiscriminately.
would a special meeting be considered a committee meeting?
No,
I
Because
wonder
if so,
about
then you
that.
wouldn't want it to just be the chair.
Yeah,
It's the chair of
yeah.
the individual committees.
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
A special
No,
meeting
but-
is of the whole board.
But don't we change meeting places? You know, something happens like the lights are out or something and so you
Yeah,
change
or
it.
power's
from-
out.
Sometimes we change them just because there's a special, a special meeting or something, right?
Yeah, but the board doesn't do it.
Right,
Jessica-
the administrator
Jessica
does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the name of the chair.
Yeah. Well, the sentence reads kind of oddly anyways. Regular or special meetings shall be held in Fairfax County or city
Yeah,
at library administrative offices or such other place as may be determined by the board for individual meetings. That just means you could go anywhere, right?
That's what I feel like.
So is that
Or
is that
especially
statement
not
necessary?
anywhere. Well, let's think. Regular meetings shall be held
It doesn't kind of make sense, does it?
at the library or.
Regular, special meetings, individual meetings.
Wait, you know what's weird? It's like so old as when the Fairfax City Regional Library had the admin offices. Like it said, shall be held in Fairfax County or city at the library. No, that's all right. Never mind.
And actually, if you go to the top for meetings, regular meetings of the board shall be held once a
That's
month.
just when.
The day and time to be determined by the board. The board actually doesn't determine the day or time. The chair and the library director determine the day and time. To be determined by the board at its meeting in July. That's not true either.
That's not
If we
true.
wanted to, I guess if if a future.
But we don't want to. It's stupid to let the board doesn't get to vote on when the meetings are. The chair sets the meeting dates in consultation with the library director.
Right.
Well, the July timeframe is tricky because typically the only time that you all change your regular meetings are if they conflict with a holiday, and the county doesn't set a holiday schedule until October.
Well, you don't need that at its meeting in July anyway. What this should probably say is, regular meetings of the board shall be held once each month I don't even know if you need August, except as, you could say, shall be held once a month, except as, I mean, I don't care about August, but to say the time and day to be determined by the chair in consultation with, what are we calling you in here, Jessica? The director?
The director.
Yeah.
Actually, you're the secretary in here, because the secretary is the chair, but I don't know whether you call yourself the chair or the secretary here.
It's
I mean,
fine.
the
Secretary's fine.
director or the secretary,
Chair, she's not the chair, but
not the chair this one. And
she's the
then
boss, the library boss.
special meetings of the board may be called by the chair and shall be called at the request of any two board members. So we are saying that two board members can call a meeting. Okay, that's fine. Shall be discussed at the special meeting. Okay.
But I don't know what a
Base,
special meeting is.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So like a special meeting is,
if we call to overthrow Fran, you and I, Sheila, can get together,
oh, well.
notify, call a meeting,
Right,
and then we have to put on the agenda, overthrow,
Glossy grammar stuff.
clear.
the
overthrow.
only,
You know, should there be something in there about notifying the rest of the board? Because what if they met and then we just said, a simple majority, they wouldn't, because it's duly appointed members, okay. 'cause
Yeah, and you need
Yeah.
5 days
some
notice.
people
That's
have,
above.
Like, the people who were, the majority of the people who were there are the quorum, so that's okay, that couldn't happen.
yeah.
Regular, and I think that regular meetings should be ahead of special meetings. And if we're, you know, in A, we're talking about regular meetings, when they shall be held, then where, should that be the next one or should it be part of A? They'll be held,
Well, your current letter C talks about both regular and special meetings. So if you keep it that way, you would want it to follow the individual items about A, regular meetings, and B, special meetings.
Mm,
oh, I see, it is regular or special
Yeah.
should be held, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good.
How about that language for C?
I
I
like it.
I deleted admin offices or places to be determined and just
Right.
included at a public location within the county or city of Fairfax. Because you do have to meet somewhere in the county. You couldn't meet in like Woodbridge.
right.
Very good.
Or virtually
Oh, yes, yeah.
in
Yeah, that's good.
in a declared emergency.
Yes,
Yes.
right,
That's
Right.
good.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
When we get to the draft policy about emergency meetings and electronic meetings, I have some bad news. Sorry for everyone. The current state law that we're following that allows you all to meet electronically is set to expire in December. And we're anticipating that it's going to get extended, but it's only a temporary standard. And when that standard expires, even if you have an electronic meeting policy in place, it would not allow your board to meet wholly virtually. It's only to allow a few individuals. You still have to have a quorum of people in person based on what the state law is.
What?
Right now.
Can't we just decide ourselves that we can meet? Come on.
You are welcome to lobby your elected officials in the state legislature if you
What
would
has
like that
to
changed.
happen here to fix this?
Why are they
So
doing
the
that?
state made a temporary emergency standard. They made a couple of them actually back in, I don't know, late May, early June, that allowed boards, authorities, and commissions to meet electronically. And it allowed us to get around very small certain parts of FOIA to do so. But it's only a temporary standard. Right now it's in place through the end of December. And even if they extend it, if they don't make it a permanent law, if it's only a temporary law for a certain amount of time, when it expires, you all will not be able to do this whole virtual process anymore unless you have a quorum of people in person And then you've just got a few extra people that maybe call in or use Zoom to log in because of, you can do it twice a year if you have personal reasons.
Right, yeah.
And you could do it for any amount of times if you had a medical reason.
Well, this isn't going to just impact us. It's going to impact a million people, right?
Yes.
Schools, the schools.
Yep.
Jessica, you went to that subject. I had two questions on that subject. The first one you just answered. The second one is, isn't the county going to have a policy on this that affects everybody? And so all we need to do is have one sentence in our policy saying that we follow that.
Wouldn't that be nice? So the county has to follow the state law as well. And so for the permanent electronic meeting portion, we have to wait and see if it becomes a full law, not just a temporary standard. But for general electronic meetings, so say you all were meeting in person again, and Fran was on a really fun vacation to wherever Fran's going to go next, but she really wanted to participate in the meeting. So the electronic meeting policy that you have would allow her to call in as long as you had a quorum. And it is not just one sentence. It is really long right now. And it's just a draft, but they wanted to include everything. I am not aware that the county is planning to draft any kind of comprehensive board authority and commission electronic meeting statement. I think it's up to each individual board to do so if they so choose, because everyone's got different bylaws right now, and it actually may conflict with some of the bylaws that other groups have in place. Here, Jimmy, let me pull up the, there we go. So this, and I'm gonna make it bigger too. So this is I did not write this one. Our wonderful colleagues in the attorney's office did, which you can see based on the structure and the numerous code citations is in here. And they had a couple of recommendations for you all to consider. The first is that they asked you to consider adopting this as a policy and not as part of your bylaws. And the reason for that, which we found out maybe a year or so ago, is that technically, anytime any board authority or commission updates their bylaws, they have to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. You all can approve them first, but they don't actually go into effect until they go back to the full Board of Supervisors and they approve them, since you are all appointed bodies. So they recommend doing it as a policy. If you would like to move forward a little bit faster, you are certainly welcome to do it either way. The second is, oops, enable editing in here. There we go. So they've got their definitions. If you allow people to participate virtually, you still have to do part of the thing you do right now during full board meetings, which is to make sure you can hear them. So you do kind of a voice vote and make sure everyone can hear the other person. And then they've got a whole process in here, which you all may or may not want to consider about requesting authorization to participate virtually. Excuse me. So this whole section is something that you all can edit or amend if you'd like. It's not a requirement. You are going to need to know in advance so that you don't have 6 people who say they want to participate virtually, because then you couldn't have the meeting because you wouldn't have a quorum in person. But you could certainly amend this section. And then they've got, and then the recording part, that's on staff. We have to make sure that we do that section. There you go. So those are the 2 big pieces in here. I do apologize that you only got this a couple of hours ago, so I understand if you want to hold and review this at your next meeting. I just wanted to make sure you got it in a timely manner.
Wait, can you scroll down for 1 second?
Sure. Which section would you like me to go
Just
to?
Scroll. Okay, quorum of the board must be, scroll back up. Stop.
Yeah, the quorum must be physically.
Regardless of members or members participating in a meeting from a remote location, the following conditions must be met for that member to participate remotely. The quorum of the board must be physically assembled at the primary or central meeting locations. What? So that doesn't make any sense if this is about a remote meeting.
So
Did I missed something?
this policy is not about our moment in time that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Uh, So this is just for general remote participation?
Yes.
Well,
So,
even before we consider this, okay, let me suggest this. I think there's a preliminary discussion to be had about A, the moment in time that we are right now, in which case, and what are we going to do if the ability to meet remotely, leaves, and B, once we're back to, if there ever is a normal, but there will be a normal, do we want to have a remote participation policy where the majority of the board is meeting centrally? Because we simply, in a practical way, we don't have, the technology in our meeting rooms in order to facilitate this so that who's ever not present can actually hear and participate, unless we move all the meetings to the government office, in which case, then I think they probably have central speakers and they have microphones sitting in front of your, in that room F or whatever it is. But we would no longer be able to meet in the libraries. You can't do it by virtue of one pathetic voice call-in thing. And the concern here is not that one person doesn't come, but that 6 out of 12 don't come. And then you don't have a meeting.
Yeah.
And then what do you do about the public? Do they all get to call in?
Mm.
So perhaps, Jessica, I'm sorry, I looked at this very quickly when I first got set out, and it's my bad. I thought what this was a policy around what we're doing now, or we're having this Zoom life. I did not think this was about partial participation.
You hit the nail on the head with that one. The assumption that I had made when I recommended that you all work on this part of your bylaws is that you would be able to have an entire virtual meeting even beyond the current emergency declaration.
Right.
And if I were a betting person, I do think that our state legislature is going to at least consider expanding this into a full law, because so many people have found that it's encouraged more public participation, but we don't know that that's going to happen. So this is here for your consideration. You don't have to do anything with it if you don't want to, but it's here.
The way I understand it now, Jessica, is we're operating without a library board policy as long as we're in the law, the state law, and any county policies.
Yes.
And that would be true even after the end of the year.
If it's extended.
The only thing is we wouldn't have protections against, the chair can kind of do what they want now, right?
So right now, the chair of the board, of any board, authority, and commission has autonomy to decide if they want to meet in person or if they want to meet virtually. When we reach a point that the state emergency declaration expires, if it is not renewed, the option to meet virtually goes away with that. You would have to start meeting in person because
No, I
state law doesn't
understand.
allow
But
for it.
there's nothing we could do as a board to change that.
No.
I guess what I'm leading up to is the only thing a policy does now or after the first of the year, if the current law is not extended, is to protect us against the chairman. There's no other reason.
I don't know that
No
I'd-
other reason to have a policy.
No, I don't know that I'd say quite like that. The policy that's on the screen right now is for your future planning purposes. So say it's a year from now and there's no more pandemic and you all are having an in-person meeting, but Sheila, like say I break my leg, I could still participate virtually. I could call in to your in-person meeting and be able to engage in the process. as long as you all were meeting as a full physical quorum. This is something that you would use to plan for future needs. It's not something to react to the current emergency in.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that Fran could do what she wants at that point. She could allow Sheila to do that.
Yes.
So the only thing the policy is doing is protecting against something we might not like the chairman is doing. And if we do nothing, we can do what we want basically within the law.
Now to think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Because I think I understand what you're saying, which is that if you all didn't adopt any kind of electronic meeting policy, then it falls back to both state law and county requirements. So say in a year from now, there's no emergency, there's none of that. Fran, as the chair, would not have as an option available to her to allow for any kind of electronic participation. So if she did allow, say, myself or Sheila to call into a meeting because we'd broken our leg or whatever, she would be violating either county code or state law or something like that. Is that?
But we can't write a policy that would give her that authority. We're
No.
only writing a policy that would limit any authority that she might have. Because we can't create authority.
No, you can't create authority for her. But this would give your board, through the chair, additional authority. This would give her the authority to allow someone outside of the quorum of your board to participate electronically. Right? I got this like 5 minutes before I emailed it all to you, so I may need to read it over myself again.
I haven't read it.
Well, if that were true, then she can't, she doesn't have the authority now.
She does have the authority now because we're under a state declared emergency. The moment that a policy like this becomes helpful to your board is if there's no emergency in place and all the laws that went back to normal, boards, authorities, and commissions have to meet in person. You couldn't do this all virtual deal.
Can I
You're not gonna
ask
be able to.
you, Jessica, on a practical level, which groups already have this, where some of them meet in person and part of them call in, and how it works for them?
So the Board of Supervisors is a great example. They are meeting in person again. They irregularly have maybe one member who calls in if they're having health issues or needs, but they can allow the public to call in or submit video testimony or public comments because they don't have to have people in the building, but they have to have a quorum of their own body in the building. They're the only ones I've actually been paying attention to. I think most boards, authorities, and commissions are still meeting virtually because we have the authority to do
No, I
that
know,
right now.
I kind of meant before COVID. All I'm saying is, on a practical level, you know, it's just that my concern is that people won't come in person, and there's an incredibly added strong benefit to having people meeting in person, face to face, and to have conversation. And
Agreed.
you know, this is a mixed ages group, and you know, I do worry that people who don't want to drive at night won't want to come, and then you lose out on their participation. And you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, we're trending a little younger now with our new board members, which is nice. Not to be ageist in any way, but
Well, I think
I don't
that's
know.
why
I think it's worth thinking about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why the attorney's office included language in here about requesting advanced ability to participate virtually.
I know,
So
but can you imagine on a practical level a chair saying no? You can't. I mean, if there's a policy and then they say no, you don't get to participate because
Yeah.
your illness is not worthy, or your particular desire, or your lack of childcare, or I mean, there's a million reasons, and that's fine. Only you just, I mean, we could not adopt this policy if we were not prepared to move the meetings to a place which had adequate technology.
Absolutely, that wouldn't work.
I mean, with adequate, you know, as a member of an office that regularly before COVID, you know, would meet in person with 2/3 of the, you know, with 2/3 of the group, but there'd be 1 or 2 people on the phone. The people on the phone kind of inevitably get the short shrift, but you know, it's not impossible. You can hear, you know, with good technology, and we have good technology in my office, you know, their voices are loud. They can hear us. It's not videotaped, but it's audio, and they can participate, but you know, it's not great.
Agreed. I would suggest that the best outcome is that the state legislature makes the current standards permanent so that you all could have the opportunity to continue to meet wholly virtually if you'd like to.
Right. And if
We
there
don't have a
were-
lot of choice in that.
that
Yeah.
was appropriate. Okay, so listen, Sheila, I am going to need to go back to my real life here.
Okay,
Because I have another meeting I have to prepare for.
right.
So what do you, I mean, I am perfectly fine if you guys want to continue the discussion of this without me, but
Well, I think that we need to read it over because I glanced it over very
feel-
quickly, but
Feel
I
enough.
need to study it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
So I'll put this draft document on your agenda for your next meeting.
Mhm.
For the edits that are on the bylaws that you made today, would you like me to add these as a consideration item for your November meeting? Or do you have additional things you'd like to think through or talk about at your next meeting?
Ooh.
I got a bunch more nitpicks.
if you guys want to do those, I will agree in advance to all of Gary's nitpicks. Just by process of, I'm sure he caught many things. But I'm gonna take off here. So nice to see your all faces. Have a good weekend.
Too.
Hi, Miriam.
You
Miriam,
too.
bye.
Yeah.
Happy meeting.
Sheila, would you like to continue the meeting and go through more edits on the actual bylaws? Or would you like to continue it to your next policy committee meeting?
I personally think we should just continue it to the next meeting. Gary, did you have a lot of nitpicks?
Probably 6.
So are they big ones? Do you think that we can, what do you think? What, Fran, what do you think?
Well, one thing, because sometimes when you think it's a small point, it does become larger upon
Yeah,
reflection and discussion. And I was thinking maybe that we continue them, we review it at the next meeting, but in the meantime, if the draft that we worked on could be distributed to us,
Yep.
in case we see something that wasn't what we meant or would be better another way, we could do that. And then we could do Gary's, and then the whole thing would be ready as a consideration item. Does that?
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because,
Yeah, good.
you know, we've been jumping around and I really want to go back and read it through.
Yeah,
I thought there were quite a few places we needed to include electronic access, and I'm not sure we picked them all up or not. So,
good
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
So I
Then
guess
I
we're
will-
ready. Are we ready? We're not ready for the renaming as a consideration item, are we, either? Because we're
No.
still waiting for
we're
county.
still waiting. We're
Yeah.
still waiting. Yeah.
So that's another thing then, that if we could have that to look at again, and you know, sometimes when you see a draft, you're like, oh, what about this? You know.
Exactly.
I will
Exactly.
send them both to you all this afternoon with the edits that you've made today. Based on today's discussions, you won't have any consideration items for the full board at the November meeting, unless you schedule a meeting of the policy committee for the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. No. Would you like to schedule your next meeting?
Well, see, yeah, that was what I was thinking, because you are going to be on maternity leave, and
Yeah, Christina's going to pick it up though.
She's gonna pick it up,
Staff side
okay.
will be fine. Don't worry about that.
okay, that's great.
Like, is it dependent if say next week the county responds to something in the renaming?
Maybe.
Should
But
we
it
move
sounds-
on it then? I mean, what do you think? I mean, well, we're dependent upon that, so.
It
Right.
does, but it sounds like you all have plenty to continue discussing both about the bylaws and about the draft electronic meeting document that the county
Absolutely.
provided. So even if you don't get a full response from them about policy P, you may still have enough to hold another meeting, a substantive meeting.
Right. So should we decide on our next meeting?
Calendar time.
Does everybody have their calendars out?
Okay.
Yep.
Sheila, would you like to meet in 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
Let's see here.
4 weeks, or what? I don't know what your schedule looks like.
Oh, it's November's dismal. Yeah, I have about six birthdays, an anniversary. It's wild, but that's okay. That's fine. Let me see. So Thanksgiving, our board meeting is on the 18th and Thanksgiving is on the 11th.
So that gives us an extra week, in fact, to, if, you know.
Yeah,
it would
'cause
be the
Veterans Day is in
11th,
there.
So that's kind of nice.
What about Thursday, or excuse me, what about Friday, November 6th? That's 3 weeks from now.
That works for me.
Works for me.
Works for me.
Okay.
Friday, November 6th. Do you want to do the same time, 1 p.m.?
1 o'clock? That's good for me.
Okay. Done and done.
Done. That's perfect. Good. Okay. So that's good. So we have, so Jessica, you're going to send all of the updates that we've been working on, and any new county attorney updates that we're looking for, and
Anything I can get. Yeah.
we'll be meeting on the 6th at 1 o'clock, Friday, November.
Got
Okay.
it.
So are you closing the meeting?
Closing. Thank you all, and we have now.
Oh, wait, I have something. I'm wondering if we should contact our state representatives to, I mean, I'm thinking I'll call up Kay, hello. About that. Maybe they need to hear from us
Well,
about
you think that we should?
making the current policy permanent rather than these limitations. I mean, I'm sort of stunned by them. I'm just sort of stunned into trying to comprehend why would they do that? What is it? You know, all of that.
Mhm.
When we don't know when this is going to end.
Right.
It's
And Sue, I'm thinking that, I mean, we're taking this on personally, how it relates to us, but this is relating to how the schools are working,
yeah.
all the other policy, all the other committees and groups that are working. So,
I was going to try and pull up so the county's legislative committee has met,
oh, nice.
and I'm trying to remember if this was a legislative item for them, because you all are welcome to lobby for whatever you'd like on your own behalf, but you can't lobby as a library board on an item that the county has not approved as part of their legislative package.
Mm.
That's
So let's see, they've got, I know they met recently. I think I'm still sharing my screen, so you should be able to see as I'm kind of poking through here.
good.
So they've got a legislative committee meeting in October, but that packet wouldn't be up yet. And I knew they had one. Let's see. Go, cycle, in. There you go.
Okay, here we go.
Let's see if we can. There's a little find. Oh, there's find. Okay, I'll poke through here a little bit more and see if there was anything specific in there, but you all are always welcome to look through there as well. This is a super draft version. They won't approve it until probably later in November.
Mhm.
It would probably be under governance more than anything else, because we've got our little blurb about libraries that just says, stable funding. Taxation, paid family leave. 6. And everything in red is language that they still need to update, that they're working with different agencies on. It's only the language in black that's a holdover from a prior year's package, and yellow has been already updated. Governance, local authority. Either way, I will send a couple emails around and see if they're thinking about it as well. So if you do want to call your state elected officials right now, I would recommend that you identify yourself as an individual, not as a board, because I just don't know yet whether or not that's been taken up by the county.
Right, right. And I think that we should study this and look it over a little bit more closely, definitely more closely.
Okay, got a note down. Are fully electronic board authority and commission meetings on the county's legislative packet. So I'll do that for you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Okay.
Okay, who would have thought it would be so complicated to say just, well, we'll rename them geographic. I thought it would be a really one sentence fix.
No.
My goodness, nothing.
Layers. Shall we layers?
Layers.
Okay. All right, have a good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. It was great seeing you all. Have a nice weekend.
You
Yep.
too.
And it looks like the sun is out.